for H and for Project Inspire. So thank you so much for being with us tonight, Rabbi Feldheim. I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so you see me well? I don't know. And there's no echo?
No echo, we're good.
Okay, amazing. So I'm going to speak first for a few minutes, and then you'll go into your rooms, and we'll pick up afterwards at the end. Okay, so I'm not having an echo here. Let me just. Okay, I'm gonna have to ignore it. I hear the sound on my cell phone because it was right by my face, and I have my computer, the audio on the computer. Okay, let's make this happen. So this week's topic is the topic of tshuva, a perfect topic for the days before Elul, and I want to start with. I think the biggest, there are many questions, and the handout that you have in the worksheet is a lot of fascinating things that you're going to discuss that are very central to tshuva. But I want to talk about one idea that it's a very big central question in tshuva, and it really redoes. It takes our if we can resolve the issue, then it'll take our understanding of tshuva to a whole different level. It's a pretty well-known idea about tshuva that seems to be problematic. The Hebrew phrase is that somebody who does tshuva, me'ava, out of love, then zidonos nasus chuyos. All of his sins, they become merits. It's like his averas become mitzvahs, which is, it's a very difficult idea to wrap our heads around. It's a beautiful idea. The idea that you can do something wrong and do an avera and actually have it turned around. But how do you make sense out of it? Normally when you think about mitzvahs and averas, the way I would think of it is that even if you could somehow undo damage that you did something wrong and we can somehow undo it, that's a beautiful idea that I can undo it. But how can I ever recover the opportunity to have done what was right? I'll give you a metaphor I think is the best way to understand it. Let's say I have a job and I get paid $1,000 a week. And I'm a drunk or whatever it is, I get depressed and I don't go to work and I miss 3 weeks of work and I lose my job. Then let's say it's a wake-up call and I get my act together and I go to the boss and I say, I was dealing with a lot of stuff and I wasn't in any place I should have been and I really messed you over, but I got my act together. I would like another chance. So it's possible that you can have a forgiving boss. He may recognize your abilities and give you your job back. And now, again, you can make $1,000 a week. But that's forgiveness. He gave you another chance. But is there any way that you could conceive that I could get the back pay for the 3 weeks that I missed? Like right now, I'm going to work this week. I'll get $1,000 for this week of work. But the 3 weeks that I missed are gone. There's no way to do that job. If every moment of life is an opportunity for me to experience something and I check out and I don't do the experience properly or I just miss the experience, so I may get chances to get, God may decide to give me more chances, but how can I recover the lost experiences? The maximum money I'll make this year, instead of $52,000, should be $49,000, even if I'm good going forward. But it seems to be in tshuva that when you do tshuva from love of God as opposed to fear, that the actual bad things you did become good. And if we could wrap our heads around that, I think it would be a game changer as far as understanding tshuva. So, and a sub question in this is if this phenomena exists, if there's some kind of mechanics that allow my bad deeds to not just get erased, but actually become good deeds, as if I did a mitzvah, some miraculous way, why is that only true for zidonos? It only says that purposeful sins, meaning true rebellion. I did a sin to do a sin, not an accident, not for any other reason. Those become mitzvos. But if I just did a sin because I made a mistake, I forgot that it was Shabbos and I broke the Shabbos. I didn't know the food was not kosher. I ate it. So one would think that for sure those sins would be on a higher level, more pure than sins that were purposely intentional. So then how can it possibly be true that purposeful sins have better results, meaning I can turn those into mitzvahs? The only thing if that could happen, however that works, then for sure a unintentional sin, but it's not like that. Unintentional sins do not become, you can erase them, you can get forgiveness for them, but they don't become mitzvahs. So how is that possible? Is there a rational way that we can understand this that would account for that apparently upside down situation where purposeful rebellious sins are better for me than just making a mistake? In any normal framework way of thinking, of course an accident is superior to purposeful rebellion. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story. It's a little bit of a brutal story, but I'll tell you a true story, and it's short, and we'll analyze it, and I think it'll be clear what's going on over here. I had a student, and I was talking to him, and we were having a very deep conversation in the street at night, and we left the shul that we were studying in, and he lived on the way to my house, and I was walking him home, and we got to his house, and we were still in the middle of our conversation. He had asked me a very compelling question, and I was thinking of how to answer it for him. But before I gave him the answer, we got to his house, and I said, you better go home, and your wife's probably waiting for you, and we'll get together tomorrow. I'll tell you a good answer tomorrow. So he goes, no, tell me now. I said, well, you got to go home. He goes, no, I can't go into the house now. I said, what do you mean you can't go into the house? He goes, whatever. I said something really stupid before I left, and I have to wait for my wife to fall asleep before I can go into the house. I said, come on, like every book on marriage, like the number one. Okay, my Zoom on my computer just turned off entirely, so it's a total mess. Do you hear me now on my phone?
Yeah, we have you, Rabbi Feldheim.
Okay, good. I just switched to the phone. Okay, so the number one rule is that you don't go to sleep without making up. So he goes, I know, but you don't know what I said. I said, what could you have said so bad? He goes, trust me, it was really bad. So I said, come on, there's no excuse. Go inside, be a man up and apologize and make up, so do whatever you got to do, and we'll talk tomorrow. So he goes, you don't know. I said, what did you say? He goes, tells me what he said. And I go, yeah, that's that's a problem. So I know I'm laughing. You hear the rest of the story. So I said to him, you know what? This is the only thing you got to do. Here's what you got to do. You have to go home and you have to say the following. I know what I said is horrendous. It's terrible. And I should, there's no excuse. I should never have said it. And I hope I'll never say something like that again. And this should be the last time. It should never have happened, but it should be the last time it happens. But I just want to explain to you why I said it. Let me explain why I said it. Is that I go to work every day, and I come home, and you are bathing the kids, and with one hand, and with the other hand, you're stirring food on the stove, supper for me. With the other hand, your third hand, you're writing a shopping list for tomorrow on the billboard. And with your fourth hand, you're writing a note to the teacher about how good of a kid, our son was, and how the teacher should appreciate how much he helped. And at the same time, you're singing to keep the house happy, and you're helping the kids draw, and you're cleaning up after them. You're doing like a million things, and you have a job, and you're doing all of it at one time. And I come home and I see you, and I think, I went to shul this morning, and I didn't really pray like I should have. I was, I left early, took my tefillin off before Aleinu or whatever. Then I went to study for an hour before I go to work, and I spent most of the time in the coffee room making coffee.
At work, I was working on 4 cylinders, and maybe I was clicking on some things I probably shouldn't have clicked on. And I come home at night and I'm tired, and it's a hard day. And I come home, and a man needs to feel free in his house. You need to feel relaxed. The problem is, I come home, and it's worse. I just feel guilty every time I see you. You're doing everything you're supposed to do. You're amazing. You have your act together, and I look at you and I feel shamed and guilty, and I can't even feel comfortable at home, because at home I just come home and I feel ashamed of myself compared to how you're performing. So part of me, in desperation, needs to find the flaw. I needed to convince myself that you're also not so wonderful, to alleviate my guilt and make it possible for me to live in my house, and not to feel this crazy pressure all day long and have no break. So the only reason why I said what I said was to knock you down, because I was so intimidated by how good you are. And I hope I'll never do it again, but I want you to understand why I said it. And that's why I said it. So the guy looks at me and he goes, "Wow, that would so work." So I start laughing. I go, "It would so work. So why don't you say it?" So he goes, "I can never say that." I said, "Like, why not? Like, it's true." That's the only reason you said it. You're ashamed of yourself. She's doing it. You take the shortcuts. She's doing everything right. And he goes, "Yeah, it's true. But why can't the guy say that?" The guy can say that because saying that is like, I call it boarding up your emergency exit. It's like, once you said it and you set out that truth, then you never can go there again. And now the only way you can live and feel comfortable in your house is actually to change, and to start praying the way you're supposed to pray, and studying the way you're supposed to study, and working the way you're supposed to work, and guarding your eyes and your speech, and being a mensch, being the person you promised when you walk down the chuppah. There's no alternative way of making it like she doesn't deserve it because you convinced yourself that she's not so great. So it's an important message. But the message here for tshuva is, let's analyze, if the guy really would have the guts and was man enough to actually say that, why would it work? And how would it work? Would it only work, or would it do something bigger? I think this is the ultimate example of Zidonos Nasus Chuyos, that all your sins become mitzvahs. Because when he says this to his wife, that the only reason I knocked you was not because you did anything wrong. You're amazing. In fact, I was intimidated. So at that moment, he just gave her a decoder ring. Yeah, okay, I'm almost done. Like, he just gave her a decoder ring. He's basically telling her that every time I knock you, it was because I was blown away by how great you are. And she can go back in her mind and say, "Wow, like, when you said that the other week, that was because you were really proud of me, or you were impressed. And when you did that time, you also felt intimidated. It means you realized what I had just done. And I thought I did all this hard work and you didn't notice. Every time you got upset means you noticed something great." So you just told her that every single insult is really some weird expression that you use for awe and love and respect. All of your sins become mitzvahs then. She can go back in her mind, and every single time she suffered from something you said, she can say, "Wow, so that was really that you were impressed. You didn't miss that. That whole time I did all that and I worked so hard, you did get it. It wasn't lost on you. You just weren't man enough to admit it." This is what tshuva is. When we get to a real place that we could face God and admit to our truths, admit, then every time we did something wrong and we ran away from God and we rebelled, what really it was I realized that life is so holy and God is so good, and I was so intimidated, and I had to run away. Everybody who runs away to a bar, to noise canceling headphones, when you get to the truth, you realize the reason why you put on noise canceling headphones is because of what you were hearing in the world was too inspiring and too beautiful, and you didn't think you could have it. So the second that you get to a place that you become brave and you can face your truth, you can revisit every sin you did. And really, it's a holy thing. Every time we get angry at somebody, it was because we were impressed with them. Every time we hid from life is because we were so blown away by the beauty of life. These things weren't lost on us. The mistake sins that we do are things we just missed. I missed it, and you can't recover it. But when you do an aggressive sin, when you rebel or hide, that really is the second greatest thing to love. Love and hatred are almost the same. They both are statements of, wow, I got it. Love is what you feel when you feel brave enough to deserve it. And hatred is what you do when you think the thing you just recognized as being holy and beautiful, when you think it's out of reach. Then you have to get angry, and then you have to hide. All of our sins are really running away from beauty that we see. And all you have to do is get to that place where you're totally honest. And at that moment, all of your hidings become holy. All of your averos become mitzvahs. Because every one of those moments really was an experience of God that caused it. Okay, I went over time, but you're a bright group. You could probably assimilate what the message is without me rambling on about it anymore. I'll see you again in half an hour or whatever it is.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Rabbi Feldheim. Okay, so we're going to send everybody off to learn, and we will see you back in about 25 minutes.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I just switched to a third option, not my phone, but it's not my real camera. It's just a cheap camera in the laptop. So it's, I don't know how well it's working, but the point is what I have to say, not what you see. So let's do this. So you went through the papers, I imagine, some fascinating stuff. So I want to continue the next step in that understanding. And I'm going to analyze a famous, we call it Chazal, a famous paragraph in the Talmud that most people learn it in a very mystical way. And I want to analyze it together with you for a few minutes in a very, take away the mysticism and make it very real. And the real idea, I think, will have crazy, cool implications for tshuva. I feel like just to introduce what I want to address is like in life and tshuva and in many things, often the greatest obstacle to changing to again, you in your papers, it didn't like the word change, but to getting back to who we were supposed to be, one of the greatest problems for people to do that is that we think it's too late. We think there's too much damage. I'm too far. You know, the whole session that you had to work on was the idea that tshuva isn't really changing. It's just recovering your true self. So the next question would be is why don't people, why isn't that the most obvious thing to want to do, to recover my dreams, my truth, who I was? So I think the number one answer why tshuva is hard is because we feel like it's too late, you know, or too much damage was done. And even if I went back to who I was, I'll never be able to be who I could have been. You know, I wasted too much time. I've gone too far. So I feel like a prerequisite to tshuva, maybe the prerequisite to tshuva, is to address this issue. And so I'm going to use a totally, apparently unrelated to tshuva discussion in the Talmud. I'm going to tell you this story. Many people may have heard it already, and it's fascinating. But I think it's even cooler when you learn it like sort of real instead of mystical, like we've learned it probably the first time you heard this. Here's what the Talmud says. It says that when before a child's born, he learns the entire Torah in his mother's womb. And then before he's born, an angel comes and hits him right here on his lip. That's what that little dent is. If I didn't have a mustache, you'd see it better, but I don't have much of a mustache, so, and my camera's terrible. But there's a dent, like we all have the same dent. That dent right under our nose, it probably has some kind of technical scientific name, but I heard it a few times. It doesn't stick. So the angel hits us there. And when the angel hit you there, me, you, we all forgot the Torah, and then we were born ignorant. And in life, the goal isn't to learn the Torah, it's to recover the Torah that we originally once had. It once was ours. We once knew it all. And I want to study this now quickly, less than 10 minutes. We got to talk fast, but a less than 10 minutes real world version of this this famous piece of Talmud. So there's 3 parts to it. They go fast, but the first part is let's replace all those mystical words with real words, okay? Like words that are useful. So the word Torah, what does Torah mean? Torah is such a broad word. So let's replace the word Torah in 2 stages. First, Torah is emes, another word for truth. Torah is the truth of the universe, but truth is really like a very philosophical term. If you wanted to replace the word Torah with even better than truth, there's another word for truth that's much more real. And that's reality. Like reality and truth should be synonyms. So, the Filtrum. Okay, thank you very much, Karen Levy. Amazing. Okay, I heard that before a few times. I'm never going to remember it. I hope you're there next time I give this class too. Okay, so the word let's replace the word Torah with the word reality. So now when we say a child knows the whole Torah, what we're really saying is that children live totally in reality, which is it's real. Like kids live totally in reality. They don't feel shame yet. They haven't felt rejection. All the reasons that we recoil from life and we start to squint at the world as opposed to staring at it wide-eyed. None of that has happened yet to a kid. So kids are wide-eyed and innocent. They take the world as it is. They literally see the world in its truth. And the way the Talmud is saying that is that children know the whole Torah, which in real language means that children live totally in reality. And then until the angel hits them. And for simplicity's sake, at this point in the idea, I'm going to fill it in, put a little more meat on the skeleton. But at this point, let's just say that when do we as children lose touch with reality? When whoever the messenger of God is that clobbers us, when we get hurt and hit and traumatized and drama and all the different things that happen in life that sort of shake us from our innocent, wide-eyed view of the world. And at that point, when that stuff happens, then we forget Torah, or in our new language, we lose touch with reality. So at this point, stage 1, I finished stage 1 of the idea. Stage 1 is basically that the idea of a child knowing the whole Torah and forgetting it when the angel hits them, you have to replace the word Torah with reality. And the word angel, the word malach really means messenger. We call the angels messengers angels because they're the ones who implement God's will. But anyone could be an angel. The person who hurt you, the neighbor, the whatever it was who hurt your feelings, who rejected you, whatever it was that robbed us of our innocence and our optimism, that wasn't a bad angel. It was a messenger to do something wrong. Now, okay, that's stage 1. So stage 1 is that children live in reality. We know the whole Torah, we know reality until we get clobbered, and then we forget reality. Okay. So then, years ago, I was a rabbi in a very rural area in Pennsylvania, and we had this glass room. I would sit in the glass room, make up my speeches. And one day I was sitting there and this bird flies right into the glass wall of the room and it falls down in a heap. And I jumped up to see it. It was I was like, I didn't want, why'd I have to see that happen? It was such a beautiful bird. I was looking at it and it flew right into my wall. And I look at it, it's alive. It's jumping around, feeling out its wings. And it took a few minutes, but eventually it flew off. And I was wondering, when this bird flies off, will he ever fly again the same way he flew the first time? Because until now, he knew that the whole sky is open. But now he's learned that the sky isn't, well, maybe 99% is open, but every once in a while there's a really hard spot. And it'll be for the rest of his life, it'll be tentative and reluctant, never knowing when again it might hit that really hard spot. And that's a really good metaphor for this story, that as children, we live in reality. We're soaring in the sky. And then we hit this glass wall and we live with reluctance and hesitancy, and we never are all in again. And that's sort of what this Talmudic piece is saying. So let me ask you a question then. If we were to paint, you wanted to paint a picture, capture that very sad moment, the bird that was hitting this glass wall. But is there a universal human moment that same thing happens? What would you paint? So again, we don't have any time, really overtime, and I want to do this in a couple of minutes. So I'll tell you what I think the picture is. There's a million moments that we hit the wall, but the first one I think is the universal moment is as little children when we say things, babies say things. Every single thing we say, our parents go, "He's a genius. Oh, you hear what he said? It's so smart." Every guest who comes to our house, they make the kid repeat it for all the guests. That cute thing, the way you distort that word, that phrase, So. And the kid starts to feel powerful. He knows how cute he is and how adorable and how everything he says is so smart. But then one day he comes and there's guests. He knows he has a new audience and he walks in, he says his funny lines, and everyone turns to him and goes, "Shh, shikhet, quiet, not now." And the kid's like, "It never happened before. Like till now, every single thing he said, he's a genius. And now all of a sudden he got shushed. And now for the rest of his life, every time he wants to open his mouth, he's going to have to wonder, is this a genius sentence or a shush one?" The human moment of hitting that glass wall, the first one is the shush. And I think that's what the Talmud is saying when it says the angel hits you on the lip. It's a metaphor for the shush. What the Talmud is saying is that we all live in the world totally embracing reality, optimistic, hopeful, dreaming, until we get shushed. And when we get shushed, now we second guess ourselves and we're never free and unencumbered anymore. And now we live hesitant and reluctant and second guessing ourselves. Okay. Now the last part of this idea, the reason why I'm sharing it to you for tshuva, it's a sad Dvar Torah until this point. The reason why it might not sound like really what the Talmud is saying, it's a nice idea, but we don't get this dent when we got shushed. It's a nice story, but it's not really the explanation of the Talmud, because the Talmud says, you got shushed and the angel makes the dent, or he touched whatever, something like that. So the dent preceded the shush. So here's the last stage of this idea, and this is what I think is a life-changing piece of information. This story of flying through the sky and getting shot down is a universal story. Every single child is a dreamer. And every single one of us, at some point in our life, something happened. We got shushed. And what happens is, for most people, that moment derails us in different ways. Some people will never try and fly again. They got hurt and they'll never fly again. Some people will fly on purpose. I'm going to teach that teacher, look how great I am. I'm going to prove them wrong. The person who said I'll never amount to something, I wasn't good enough, we dedicate our lives to proving them wrong. But both of those stories are terrible. Whether you never fly again or you fly just to teach someone, that moment derailed us. And we now living our lives by some event that happened in 4th grade. And we stop being ourselves. How do we recover ourselves? It's so difficult because I think that everything was going great and this person ruined my life. So here's the punchline of the whole idea. And I think what can change tshuva for all of us is that, no, look in the mirror. That person didn't make the dent. That dent on top of your lip, it was there before you got shushed. You think that you were flying and you were going to be every one of your dreams. And that teacher, that friend, that neighbor, that boyfriend, that girlfriend, that director, camp, boss, client, they ruined my life by shooting me out of the sky. And the answer, and the Talmud was telling you, no, that's not the truth. That person didn't ruin your life. Yes, they shushed you, but the dent was already there. What does it mean that the dent was already there? What it means that the dent was already there is the dent says, place finger here and shush. We were supposed to be shushed. They didn't create the dent. You were born with the dent. The dent is not a result of a shush. It's a groove to place the finger on dotted line and shush. It's a total paradigm shift in what life is about. I always thought, and most people think, that life was about dreams and flying in the sky. And that person ruined my dreams and ruined my life. I could have, would have, all the things that could have been. And look what happened to me now. And the Torah is telling us literally the opposite. Don't think that you were supposed to fly and he shot you down. Here's what was supposed to happen. You were supposed to fly, but I gave you this dent. You were supposed to be shot down. That was all part of the plan. The purpose of life is not to fly. The purpose of life is to fly and get shot down. You think your birthday was a day you were born? No, your birthday is the day you get shushed. Because the purpose of life is to fly. And then finally someone puts their finger and shushes you and you hit the ground. And that's when life begins. Life is learning how to fly again. Everyone gets shot down. All of us who think it's too late, look what happened. They ruined it. No, that is the script. Tshuva is recovering. That's what we were created for. It's the purpose of the universe. We were supposed to be shot down. The day you think you died is the day you were born. This is what I look every day. I wake up, I look in the mirror and I see that dent. I tell myself that every bad thing that happened, don't curl up in the ball thinking they ruined your life. You were born with the dent. Shushes were intended. That was the final act of your creation. Life is about tshuva, about recovering, about learning how to fly again. This is why the tablets in the temple were the second tablets. The temple was destroyed and rebuilt. Everything is about the second time around. Go into Rosh Hashanah knowing that tshuva is not second best. It's not an alternative plan. My averos didn't ruin my life. God created us with free choice. He gave us the opportunities. And what he wants is us to find ourselves wherever we find ourselves and to learn how to come back, to learn how to fly again. Whether he shot you down, you shot yourself down. When you find yourself in a heap on the ground, that's where life begins. To learn how to stretch out your wings again and to be brave and take to the skies and live again how you were meant to live. That's the secret. And that's, to me, that's life-changing. Tshuva is not second best. Tshuva is the purpose of life. And it should free us on all of our resentments and all the things that weigh us down. All right, it's been a pleasure talking to you. May you have the sweetest, happiest New Year ever. May Hashem help us achieve all our dreams. All right.